All right, and we are live. Hello. Oh shit! Yeah. Woo!
Woo! Gotta have some bear run excitement,
dude. I was about to say the bear run.
Yeah, it's more of like a little bear paw. Yeah, just like a timid bear paw.
Oh my god, too funny. So we are live now on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So if you're here, hello, welcome. I don't think comments from Twitter come in here. So if you want to leave a comment, jump over to Twitch and or YouTube, leave a comment, ask questions there. We will be taking questions at some point in this talk. So definitely jump to one of those so you can ask questions. But I'm here joined by the fantastic Austin Griffith and Nader Dabit. How are you both doing today?
Awesome, man. Loving it. How about you, Nader?
I'm doing amazing. I can't complain at all.
Excellent. Yeah. And we were talking,
how are you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Austin and I were complaining a little bit before this, but that's okay. we were like, we're poor now. But that's fine. You know, such is life. The Holy Trinity. What's up, Albert? How you doing, man?
Yeah. Dude, Albert and I built something awesome yesterday. We got on for like a 1 hour run and we built like a dice roll game that uses block.difficulty for randomness. And that it's because this Randao stuff is going to start replacing block.difficulty because we won't have proof of work, we'll have proof of stake. And so it's live on Ropsten. So we made a dice game on Ropsten that uses the Randao stuff within block.difficulty. In like 1 hour with Scaffolded. It was a dope build.
So wait, so I'm excited that you're kicking it off with this actually because I have a ton of questions about that.
Because probably don't have answers.
Well,
we'll see.
So the Randao is like one of those things that I'm like I've been trying to look into. Is it literally like a randomness DAO? Is that how it works?
I think it's like you think so. I don't know. This is my if someone else has a better answer, please jump in. But I think of it as like a circle of validators, and that whole circle is participating in a ceremony that creates the randomness. And you only need like one person in the group to be able to make the randomness less gameable or something like that. But I think it has to do with since you're already committing attestations and whatever you're doing over here and on this node that I have here, you can attest to and you can add in some randomness there too, like some kind of commit reveal or something like that. I don't know a ton about it though.
All right, so we'll have to look it up because I remember they were I was looking into it a few months ago and I ended up emailing Justin Drake about it, and he he obviously did not respond because he's busy. but yeah, I was trying to learn about it a while, so that's really cool. Hell yeah. But yeah, so for everyone who's showing up here, we're here talking kind of about whatever we want to talk about. Yeah, market's going crazy. I did want to ask Nader about his move to Celestia. I already forgot what was the move.
Yeah, so I haven't officially announced it yet, but I guess now's a good time as ever because like I was actually thinking about doing that. It's all good. It's all good. So I'll probably send that tweet out.
I saw that I knew for a fact you posted it on Twitter that you were leaving the graph,
but he did not announce that he left a cliffhanger.
Yeah, but I did speak to you privately. But like I was planning on doing it like anyway, like either today or tomorrow. So like I've been with the graph for about 15 months, and I kind of joined like Web3 like with that team, and I had a really, really great time there, and it's actually still a really great team, and it was kind of probably the toughest decision I made in my career. But yeah, I'm joining Celestia, and I'm really excited about a lot of the work that they've already done and a lot of the vision that they have. And there's a lot for me to talk about. So check out my tweet thread that will be coming out here in the next hour.
Even
or
sooner.
Like that.
Bro, I am
but
so sorry.
But that's alpha. Like the people that showed up here to watch this, that's the alpha.
You heard it here first. So come whenever the three of us hang out, just come because we'll accidentally let shit rip. My bad. But yeah, dude. Yeah, like I saw that you were leaving, and I was like, whoa, what the? And I like immediately DM'd you, and I was like, dude, like what's going on? Because yeah, like you got into the space through the graph, and like I was like both like super pumped for you. I was super. A part of me was like sad. I was like, oh shit, like that's like I know it was like Nader is the guy who came over to the graph, but dude, I'm pumped for you. Like I'm super excited. And like the thing is, I feel like in the space, you've kind of like you kind of like came in and you started like doing shit. And like this to me, this is like an extension of that. You're just like, I'm just gonna do shit. Here's what I want to do, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have changed in the last year around developer education. I think when I came into this space, like Austin and you, maybe like there was DAP University, and like other than that, there like wasn't any content out there, and even the quality of content like now versus a year ago that you guys are putting out is like on a whole nother level. I think even like you with that 32-hour course, and like Scaffold ETH with like 250 branches and like Ethereum speed run. And like I think that over the course of the 15 months of me coming into the space with like zero understanding of anything to now, I feel like I have a much better understanding about like what I want to work on. And I think that while I've been able to kind of really understand, things from the perspective of like a developer, like as a newbie 15 months ago, as to now someone who's like still somewhat of a newbie, but like maybe an intermediate newbie. I definitely understand like what I want to work on. So I want to work closer to the application level, like, and I want to work like with some type of like layer 1 or layer 2 execution environment, even, or like closer to like the actual developers, like writing smart contracts and stuff. And I also want to deepen my understanding of smart contract development and protocol like level development. And so I kind of been keeping my eyes out for different teams. I was really interested in Optimism. I was really interested in Nomad. I was really interested in really a lot of different teams. And I ultimately decided to work with Celestia for a handful of reasons. Like they are doing some really innovative stuff around modular execution, or I would say modular blockchain, like architecture in general. And a lot of what Ethereum's roadmap has kind of changed in the last few months is due to, I think, some of the stuff that they've actually innovated and brought to the table. And regardless of like what we do in the next couple of years at Celestia, I think that I'm going to learn a lot, and I think we're going to be pushing the entire space forward. And it's just, yeah, it seems like a really, really interesting team to work with, and I'm excited to kind of get started.
Hell yeah. Well, I guess now that we've already spilled the beans, I still like still feel so stupid, man. It was in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, he left. And then like we had a long conversation, and then it just like was like, oh yeah, it's like it's all good to talk about. But yeah, like since we already spilled the beans, can I ask, like, I was looking into it, and yeah, it said it's like a modular stack. Like what's like the elevator pitch of it?
I think the basic idea is like basically all the blockchains that we've seen up until this point, even though we've seen a lot of innovation around differentiation between each other and various like ways, they've all been kind of similar in the sense that they're all having this monolithic architecture that they all kind of incorporate both the data availability, the consensus, the settlement, and the execution all together. And I think that what you've started to see is the unbundling, or I would say kind of the separation of these different pieces, as we've kind of realized that like how that architecture doesn't really scale. So I think one good example of that is like we're starting to see the layer 2s with the optimistic and the zero knowledge rollups kind of like become the narrative of how we're going to scale Ethereum in particular. But what, like, I think the difference between maybe what Celestia's like thesis is that not only does maybe the execution layer need to be its own separate piece, but maybe every single layer needs to kind of or could potentially be a separate piece, and therefore we can kind of like focus on fine tuning each individual part of the stack, and we're not kind of tied to any limitations by any other part of the stack.
Interesting. Well, I'm very excited to see the tutorials come out of that as I peruse. Yeah, because I was perusing through it the other day, and I'm like was trying to figure out how to build on it, but I guess I'll find out soon.
Yeah. I think that if people want to learn more about it, I'll just share a couple of links here in the private chat, and then hopefully you can maybe share those. There's a podcast episode with Mustafa, who's one of the founders, and the original, I think, person that wrote what's called the Lazy Ledger white paper, which is kind of the origination of like what Celestia currently is. So, and then there's a blog post or a write-up from Delphi called Pay Attention to Celestia, which is really great. And I think you also had the celestia.org docs. And I think that if you go to, let's see here, Learn Modular, this is a really great overview of, go to resources, actually. Yeah, Learn Modular. Yeah, so that those three resources, the two that I linked, and then Learn Modular, those are kind of the best place to get started. I think you can kind of read through those and get a really good understanding about what we're doing there. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, thanks for the share here, and yeah, for people who are here, keep it here. Actually, that's
no, it's all good.
I will say that I was just in an interview, and we were trying to hire a new developer, and we asked them how they got into the space. And the interviewee with me even led with, "Did you get into this space using Austin Speedrun?" And the interviewee said, "No, I found Nader's stuff first." And so, like, and I've said this before, but I want to say it again, like, very loudly, that what you guys are doing for DevRel in the Web3 space is 10x or 100x what I was doing. Like I was like, I don't know what DevRel is, but I like Web3, so I'm going to try to apply it here. And then you guys came in and you guys were the champions of DevRel. You knew how to do DevRel, and you did it really well within Web3, way better than I could. So I appreciate y'all's efforts, both Patrick and Nader. You guys are killer for this space.
Well, thank you. And that's, really kind of you. I have to say though, like for sure, when I got in, I think that I learned a lot of the stuff that I then taught to other people from you. So like, it's kind of like this, I guess, compound effect. Like, you laid the groundwork for a lot of the stuff that we've done. And we've seen a lot of people that are even in this chat, like Albert, and a lot of people that are doing an amazing job as well. And there's just a lot of people out there that are now creating content, open sourcing their code, and just teaching other people. And the number of people that are in this space today versus like a year or so ago is just like so many more. It's hard to kind of gauge the numbers. You see like the people that are trying to kind of like put out charts and graphs and actually aggregate, but I don't think that we have any good understanding exactly of the number of developers, but it just feels like 10x more or something like that than it did a year ago.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like every time the three of us come together, I think, Austin, I feel like I've heard you say that like a couple of times, like, "Oh, thank you guys for coming to DevRel." And then Nader and I, both times you've done that, have been like, "No, dude, like, thank you for laying the groundwork. Like, you were the OG." I remember when we first had a conversation, like, I was trying to figure out like what your role in the space was. And you were like, "Oh, like, I just like building and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then I was like, "Oh, so you're like kind of like the DevRel of Ethereum." And then you were like, "What? No." Because I think because that was like developer relations, like, wasn't, you were just like, "No, I just like build really cool shit, and I like help other people build really cool shit," which maybe we should.
Sounds like DevRel.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
I went to a DevRel conference when we were starting to do this. I was like, "What the fuck is DevRel?" Like today I learned DevRel, and I went to DevRel conference. And the whole conference was them like talking about how they like can travel better. Like it wasn't a great conference, I will say that. It was like a meta conference for them to make their lives better. It wasn't like, how do we get better at doing DevRel? Yeah. So I was already kind of like even turned off a little bit by what traditional DevRel looked like. And maybe that's just like in the Web2 world, when you get comfortable, that's kind of the path that you take. But I feel like DevRel definitely needs to have a like on the ground, here are all the folks I'm helping, like some kind of direct access with folks, and then also like now scale that out. Like this worked with these 5 people. How do I get it to work for 50,000 people? And that's, you guys have done that a really, really good job of that, is scale.
You bring up a really good point though. Like I actually, when I first started doing DevRel and like learning about developer advocacy, I was like, all right, how do I do this? I went to a couple of DevRel conferences. I had the same experience. I was like, man, like these people who think they're good at DevRel like kind of suck at teaching me about DevRel. What's that about? Because yeah, it was the same thing. It was like, all right, like here's how you like have like quick 5-minute speed talks with people. Here's like 6 travel hacks when you're on the, and I'm like,
the travel hacks. It was so much of that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It was like basically you guys are having this conference so you guys can get together and hang out,
and
which is cool. But for me, who needs to learn DevRel, I'm not getting a lot here. Which maybe we should apply back to like Web3 hackathons. And like, are we just going to New York next week because we all want to hang out, or is there like some serious value with getting us all together? And we need to start leaning toward the latter.
I'm actually in the camp where I'm like, I think most conferences are wastes of time.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, it's for fun.
it's for fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the three of us, we went to eat Denver together. I got almost nothing done that week, but I loved it. I had an absolute blast. Like, it was super cool meeting the two of you like there in real life, and maybe drinking a little too much tequila, but but it was a ton of fun. But I definitely was not productive that week. Definitely was not productive. So are all three of us going to New York next week? No,
Nader man's out. He's got real work to do.
Yeah, right. He's gonna go.
Yeah.
He's gonna go be productive.
Are you guys going? Oh, okay. No, I'm not going to be there, but yeah, everyone else that I know will be there, so I'm sure y'all have a good time.
Well, you were just in Cali for the Graph Day, right?
I was in Graph Day, I was at ETH Prague, and then I'm missing
great.
New York, but I'm still going to be at a lot of other events for sure. I think like for me, a good amount, like max would be like one event a month, which is a lot, right? That's still like a ton, but like, you know, it's enough to where I'm able to like be in my office like 3 weeks and actually, like you mentioned, like get a lot of work done. But I do think that events offer something that you just can't get remotely, and I think I learned this during doing DevRel before COVID, during COVID, and then after COVID. Like during COVID, everyone's like, oh, like, you know, we're going to do these virtual events, and like they're so much better because they are accessible by a lot more people because everyone can kind of attend no matter where they are, and most of them are free. But I think there's a trade-off there. Like I think that with the current like state of the internet period, like anyone can create a video and upload it at any time. It can be watched on demand at any time. So the like in the past, like 10 years ago, a conference was really valuable because you could show up and like learn something that you couldn't have learned at home. But now you can learn all that stuff at home. Like you can watch Patrick's course at your own pace for 32 hours and like get more information than going to college for like 2 years or something, like real world applicable knowledge. But when you go to these conferences, you actually are more focused, I think, around building relationships and actually having conversations with people and not actually going to the talks themselves, even though the talks are things that I still attend, but they're not my main focus. It's like I'll go to 2 or 3 talks, but like seeing Patrick and seeing Austin in person after knowing them for 2 years or whatever, like X number of years, you know someone, but you actually never meet them. But like when you meet them in person and then you go back home, you feel like you actually have a real connection with them. So I think that's what conferences bring to the table. And also just having a good time, like you mentioned, is a good thing, but we shouldn't overdo it. I think that we should focus maybe on building a little more, and then like conferences should be, you know, like things that we do that are not like the main priority, but yeah.
The conference is like kind of around the hackathon, and if your conference doesn't have a hackathon, I'm probably not going to go. Like the hackathon is key, bringing in hackers. And honestly, I think if you are at the hackathon, you're already kind of in. It's like how do we create async content that drives people to then show up to these hackathons and have the confidence to build something, and then after the hackathon, let's go have a beer and have fun.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think when we're talking about scale too, it's like exactly what you guys were just saying, like building the content that people can do on their own time, because that's going to scale much better than if all we were doing was going to conferences. But yeah, I mean, Nader, you saying like meeting people in real life, it really does like have like a little bit, like, I don't know, like we're all about building these trust minimized systems, these trustless agreements and stuff. But yet like meeting someone in real life like adds like that level of like trust you have in somebody, which is crazy. Yeah, the people that I've met in real life, I'm more like, okay, like I know you, like I know you're not gonna screw me over, I know you're gonna tell me like good things. It's yeah, it's really crazy that in-person effect.
You were talking about San Francisco and the graph. I wasn't able to go because I've been trying to target traditional JavaScript audiences. I want to go to a JS conference. I want to go to a React conference, and I want to show this off. And I said this to Nader 6 months ago. I said, I don't know anybody. How do I go to one of these conferences? And while you guys were all at San Francisco hanging out with all the Web3 people that love you, I went to Render ATL thanks to Nader connecting me, and I got to talk to a bunch of people that hate Web3. And that was just like a cool experience to be able to do. And I think we need to do more of that outreach.
Right.
Too. So
100%.
thanks again to Nader for that.
Oh, for sure. Render is such a unique event, not only as opposed to like a Web3 event, but just like in general, because it's kind of very culturally focused around the city of Atlanta, and a lot of the stuff that happened there, I think, was relevant to like the city itself, the food and the entertainment and like the people there. It just seemed like a really, really fun event. I'm hoping I get to go, again. But like one of the things that I learned at AWS was like when I joined the team there, they were 100% focused on attending other AWS events and speaking to AWS like people, and they weren't reaching any new developers. And the strategy that I took the second that I got there was to kind of like find developers where they are and meet them there and talk to them there. And I think like what I've realized like maybe fairly recently is that like a lot of the events that we go to are just targeted at people that already know this stuff and they're already interested anyway. And we're kind of just like, just preaching to the choir almost. But what you just mentioned there is probably something we should consider focusing on more, is like getting these ideas out there to people that either don't know about them or maybe they're skeptical of them. And I think like, that should definitely be something we consider focusing on over the next year.
Why do they hate Web3? I feel like that's like the alpha right there. You were like, oh,
that's a good discussion.
I can explain it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can explain it, but I can give you some hints. Like
we need to bring them on, and then we can have
there's
like
no.
a little,
Well, I mean, I spent the whole weekend asking people and finding out like what was their skepticisms. So I think that like one of the big things is like, first of all, Web3 doesn't have a marketing department, and anyone can say Web3. Like any knucklehead can stick Web3 in their Twitter profile. Any knucklehead can tweet Web3 is going to save the world. And every time someone does that, everyone else around them goes, I don't know about that. Like any knucklehead can tweet right through. There we go. So first of all, just like the fact that it's permissionless means that a lot of like non-savory people are attaching to it and using it as their like jumping off point. And then so to come into the space, you have to just wade through a bunch of garbage to get down to the good stuff. And I think a second piece here is, since there's money at the protocol, there's kind of value at the base of all of this. I think a lot of people in Web 2 feel like the folks that get into Web 3 are kind of more like griftery type people that are in it for the money and are focused on money first. And so that kind of that combination of there's no good marketing for Web 3 and everyone talks about Web 3 and it's different for everyone. And then there's money at the basis. So then you have all of these Ponzi schemes and things that like end up looking bad. So if someone from the outside world sees people being loud about it and saying that it's going to change the world, and they also see a bunch of people losing money and a bunch of like their griftery friends launching shitty NFT projects, and it's very, very easy from them on the outside to say there's nothing there, like there's nothing, like this is all garbage. And I hear you say decentralized tech, but I feel like decentralized tech is this thin little layer, and then all of this stuff on top is just speculation and garbage, and that's like really the thing that they criticize and they're very skeptical of. I'm not sure exactly how to turn that around, but I think it just takes more good messages being out there and us keep building and showing things off.
I feel like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, I mean, all three of us, it's one of the things we're most frustrated with is all like the stupid, like I just should say like stupid bullshit. I know Nader's been very, very vocal about the stupid bullshit that he hates as well. So like,
dude, yeah, someone said like 90% of the web is going to be Web 3. Like I saw that tweet too, and I was like, what does this even mean? Like, no, it's not. Like Web 3 is a thin layer here. Like, and Nader finally called whoever that was out, but it was like, even when I read it, I was like, is Austin Griffith going to throw shade? No, he didn't.
I ended up deleting that tweet. I feel like usually when I decide to kind of like speak negatively against that, I feel like remorseful for doing it. Like, I feel like it was a mistake. I should focus on highlighting the good things that we're doing as opposed to kind of like, but at the same time, I also feel like no one is speaking up on our space about some of that negative stuff. So when people come in and they're like, they don't see us like the leaders of the space actually trying to kind of point out when people are doing bad, like then how can they trust us to point out the things that are good? So I kind of like want to find a way to kind of speak against those sorts of people
Like
and
zealots.
highlight some of that, without trying to kind of be someone that's a negative person. So like when someone says something like you have to learn Web3 or something like that, like to me that's like really, really not true, because like just like machine learning came around and like revolutionized a lot of stuff, you didn't have to learn machine learning. You could have, though, and like benefited a lot from it and like become probably a specialist and made a lot of money and maybe even built a company. You could have still not learned that and still been like a traditional whatever you're doing. I feel like there's a few different things that have happened in tech that have like been like that. And I feel like Web3 is kind of like that. So when someone does like come around and say something weird, like that person who was like 90%, I think like the one that you mentioned is like 90% of the internet's going to be Web3 by 2030. Like it was all just made up bullshit. And then she had this link to go fucking spend $1,300 on some bullshit course that you don't need. And like, to me, that's just grifting. And that's like shit, like when if you want to sell your course or whatever, that's cool or whatever, go for that. But like, don't come up with a bunch of like, bullshit stuff and like bucket all of us together in there with you. And it just feels like it makes me embarrassed to even like share the same space with those sorts of people. And it almost makes me wonder if like we need a rebrand for the tech part of Web3 away from some of these other people that are doing all this like this dumb shit. And that's kind of like what I'm thinking. But
decentralized tech is the best I can come up with, and that is like the least sexiest thing ever. Like decentralized tech. That sounds like a bunch of sweaty nerds with backpacks hanging out.
I mean, that's like basically me, though. Just
also that's going to be New York.
Yeah, I'll see you in New York, man. No, dude, but I mean, the thing is, like, that's like spot on. And actually, so I did a Twitter space right before this, and they were like, "Yeah, like I saw this person post about their course. It was $1,200, and then they were using fucking 0.4 of Solidity with like old ass like truffle installs and shit." And I was just like, oh god, you copy pasted this like 2 years ago and never update because you don't actually understand what's going on, and then you're charging 12. Like
that you can get for free. You can get a free from either any of the three people here provide a full length 0 to 1 setup for free. But like it makes me think like, should we have a paid version just to like capture those folks that are like, nah, I think I need to pay $1,200 for this. Like, okay, like I take like the free version and like make it dark mode and charge $1,200 for it or something.
Dude, I think about that a lot, actually. I think about that a lot. But I mean, to me, like the bigger thing though is kind of what Nader was pointing to before, is like there are people who are taking advantage of this space, like who are actively taking like I don't want to say like alpha because that term's overloaded, but taking like momentum of this space away, like cutting the wind out of our sails by like pushing all this bullshit, right? If we want to see where smart contract, where blockchain can go, we need a whole lot less baggage. And yeah, Nader, I struggle with that like too. Like, how do I call them out while being positive? One of the things I think about a lot actually is because, obviously I pay a lot of attention to DeFi. A lot of these protocols, they get hacked with the same fucking hacks that we've seen 100 times. And I'm like, I don't want to be like I don't want to be like, at this point it's ignorant, right? Because that's kind of like that's I think that's really elitist. I think that's not cool. I think it's pretty much never cool to be like, you should have known better. But at the same time, like I'm like, all right, like I have security courses, I have like security content, and I like at the top of the thing, I go, don't do this, and then oh hey, we lost $20 million because we did this, and I'm like, well, fuck, like so it's hard. How do I call them out without calling them out? And how do I say like, hey, it's not acceptable to be getting hacked with these hacks that we saw in fucking 2016? so it's a struggle, and it sounds like we probably won't solve that in this call, which also makes me sad.
Yeah, but like I think that it's worth also talking a little more about why people are skeptical of this space, because like you mentioned, when you talk to people at Render, I've also talked to quite a few people, and I think that what we see in the narrative of the people that maybe really really hate it or really really love it is like they have this maximalist point of view that is probably not it's not gonna be like the proper point of view, in my opinion, on either side. Like you have to actually acknowledge the trade-offs. And I think that when someone comes out and they're like, you have to learn Web3 or else you're gonna like, lose your job, or like you're not gonna like whatever those people are saying, they're just as bad as the people that are out there telling you that everything in crypto and Web3 is evil. Like those are the exact same people with those exact same mindsets. They're just on separate ends of the field. Instead, I think like what the actuality, or like the truth of the matter is that there is a trade-off, and there are trade-offs just like there are in any technology, and understanding those and kind of being able to know why this thing is good or bad, and like when you're actually building applications, I guess, with this technology, what are the trade-offs? Just like if you're going to choose a NoSQL database over a SQL database, or if you're going to choose a serverless architecture over a server full or traditional architecture, like that's the same consideration of why you might choose a blockchain, or why you might choose a decentralized network, or why you might choose something like I would say self-sovereign identity with like a wallet authentication versus a traditional. And those are the types of like conversations, and I think narrative that when people actually start digging into it and understand it, they become less polarized on either way. And I think like the people though that are extremely maximalist vocally are actually using that narrative to kind of like clout chase. Either they're clout chasing to get a bunch of Web3 people, like, or people that are interested in Web3 to follow them, or they're doing that to get a bunch of the people that hate a lot of other things. And it's almost like become like a political or religious thing. Like, oh, I'm Christian, so therefore like everything like Christian, like I'm going to be, or I would say okay, religion is maybe not the right, even though it is actually a good a good way to kind of put it, but maybe more like politics. So like when you have points of view about the world, you often don't actually fall into a political category until you join a political party, and then you start saying, okay, like Democrats like all of these things, and they hate all of these other things. So if I join the Democratic Party and I follow this person, and they're going to have like this point of view about all of these things, and I'm going to follow that point of view to the T, even though in reality I'll probably have other opinions. I think that's kind of how you see this anti-blockchain thing. It's almost like politics, where like all of my friends are like really like this way, and they hate blockchain, so I'm also going to hate it. But they don't give any like leeway. Like they'll work at Google, part of their paycheck is coming from ICE. They are like doing all this really terrible shit, like in their like day-to-day life, like that's really unethical. And then they'll go on Twitter and say that like people being able to transact like value permissionlessly around the world is unethical, but they are living like a very unethical like life. And I think like for you to like live that way means that you're just unable to kind of like think logically. And I think that that's kind of like where we are with a lot of the people that really love blockchain and like say it's going to save the world, and then the people that are on the other side of that.
And we're right in the middle, nerds with tools in our toolbox. And blockchain, like you said, with SQL and NoSQL, is another tool in the toolbox. Decentralized tech is just a thing for us that helps us build certain things. And you don't need to decentralize certain things. And sometimes things are really powerful when you decentralize them. I saw a tweet the other day from like a gamer who was like, oh my gosh, I actually like, he's definitely a skeptic of, I don't remember who it was. He's a skeptic of the gaming space or of the blockchain space, but he just discovered Dark Forest and was like, oh shit, actually, like, yeah, like you have a blockchain with a ZK fog of war and a blockchain as the settlement layer. This this is the perfect use case for blockchain in gaming. And that's what it is. It's like Brian Gu and team that built Dark Forest, to them, it's another tool in the toolbox. And blockchain, along with ZK tech, so decentralized tech and ZK tech, is the perfect tool to build this specific game. And this specific game is really cool, and you can only build it with these tools. And so that person had tweeted like, oh, I'm a skeptic, but this is the perfect use case for it, and someone's actually doing it. And like, those things get me so excited, because I know that like there's this really cool tech underneath here, and there's all this garbage around it. But when I see someone who's skeptical of it get in and actually find the cool thing and then get it, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Like that, I love that so much.
Do you guys think that there's like a certain industry or space in particular that we should be focusing on, that we're like, all right, this is like the industry blockchain and smart contracts are good for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the most apparent use case that we haven't even really gotten global adoption for, that is something that really is really impactful for a lot of people around the world, and especially from it's almost the reason why I initially got interested in joining the space in the first place, is payments and integration of payments for e-commerce and physical commerce and things like that with stablecoins. So with traditional tech, if I want to pay someone, it's literally sometimes almost impossible to pay someone in different countries than you're currently living in. So I live in the United States. If I want to pay someone in Palestine, or if I want to pay someone in different parts of the Middle East, or maybe even in Africa or South America or stuff, like all of the financial infrastructure needed between the banks and the payment providers and all of the KYC and all of that stuff is like a huge, massive mess. And it's really complex when you actually look at all the pieces that have to work together, and then the barriers to entry for people to actually get to the point where they can interact with you. So like if someone wants to accept money, they can't just like accept it. But like with crypto, with payments, they can literally install a browser extension and give me an address, in less than 5 minutes I can send them payment. Now that payment is actually useless unless they can actually do something with it. So I think that's kind of like what I'm getting at. We need to have point of sales that mechanisms that allow people to easily take that money and spend it to buy groceries. So with the last couple of years, we're now starting to see transaction costs fall into the few cents of a transaction. We're starting to see stable coins market cap grow and grow to the point where it's just continues to grow, because I think that that use case just makes a lot of sense. So if I run a global digital business, I can now hire from over 150 whatever countries around the world. And if I want to pay someone, all I have to do is literally click like 2 buttons and I can pay them. I don't have to worry about all this. Like, if you've ever run a business, you understand how like fundamentally different than anything we have, and how revolutionary that is. And then just as revolutionary as it is for me to transact in that way as a business, for me to then take that money and go buy something is equally as revolutionary. So I think things like Solana Pay need to be like, we need to see more versions of that, so people can kind of like, oh, I'm selling coffee. I can just literally take my iPad, like click a couple of buttons and be able to take a stablecoin payment from someone. Therefore, that person never needs to offload that currency into fiat or anything. So there needs to be no offboarding. So like, once you have all these people that are using these tokens, and in a way that actually helps change the world, you now have millions, tens or hundreds of millions of wallets. And those people can then start interacting with Web3 applications that, to me, are the most interesting use cases beyond finance and DeFi, or kind of like what Lens Protocol is doing. And I think that Lens Protocol is going to be huge, or something like it will be huge, because we now have the ability to share backend infrastructure along with data. And I think open source kind of like showed us how, if we share code, we can innovate and we can build a lot more sophisticated applications a lot more quickly, and we don't have to create everything from scratch. And I think like the Web3 data and architectures that we're starting to see with things like Lens Protocol, where you can do the same thing as we did with open source, but with data and backend infrastructure, is huge and revolutionary. So I think like digital payments, along with shared backend infrastructure. Those are the two areas that I'm most excited about. But so sorry for going on too long. I definitely want to hear what you guys think.
No, dude, you're good.
I stream to build guild members. I'm basically running a company that's not a company. I have smart contracts. When a new builder comes in, I deploy a smart contract that says you can withdraw X amount over the month, and I just keep that thing loaded up, and I get accounting out of the box, right? It's all on chain on a public blockchain. So when I want to, query up how much I spent for taxes or something like that, it's like a small script that just looks through all my, oh yeah, from Prague, right? Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you're
Heads
muted.
up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just had to show that off because I love this shirt so
It's a
much.
great one. I love that
sick.
place, man. So one place I wanted to target, you talked about finance, you talked about art, you talked about social, you talked about just like payment processors, right? Like remittances was a big thing back in the day. Like, like 5 or 6 years ago, we talked about how blockchain is really powerful for that. It still is, but there's a lot of other use cases that are coming up. One that I wanted to hit on is just like builders. Like the fact that any coder can now kind of like program money and program it in a decentralized way. You can basically build a vending machine that does whatever the fuck you want, and you can deploy that, and not even you can stop it, and anyone in the world can interact with it without any censorship. Like there's just a lot of places that's going to be valuable. But when we look at it from our lens, a lot of times we're looking at it from, I'm Austin, I live in Colorado, I don't need things to be decentralized, right? You don't need decentralization until you do. And so there's going to be places and times in the world where we're going to need to have things that are decentralized and censorship resistant. And if we can get to the builders, and builders anywhere in the world can just pop up and build that vending machine that people need and deploy it, I think that's a good target audience also, and a good place to be playing. Is just like make sure, just in general, people are able to build these things and create just like one-off ad hoc mechanisms for you and your social network to interact with.
Hell yeah. For me, it's all the payment, all the money stuff, and then DeFi. To me, I'm just like smart contracts, like
finance.
Yeah. Like so I worked at a hedge fund for a couple of years, and I was just like, yo, this shit's whack. And smart contracts solve a lot of the whackness. But without going too deep into that, Nader said something interesting. He said he brought up stablecoins, and we definitely don't have time to like go super down the rabbit hole for stablecoin stuff. But I wanted to ask: have any of y'all looked at like the DAI stablecoin code or Frax or like any of that stuff? Like, is that something that that you guys have taken a look at?
Yes, and it's very complicated for someone like me, who's, I would say, a beginner to intermediate smart contract developer. And I think over the next year working at Celestia, I'm hoping to kind of really, really dive a lot deeper into that space. But yeah, I mean, I understand, I would say, a very small portion of their code base, but it is interesting to kind of look into it,
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is because you mentioned like, hey, like, paying with stablecoins is really important. Do you guys think that like the way we should do it, and now I'm totally tangenting, but this is like since like Luna, shit the bed, this is kind of like where my mind's been. I'm like, all right, like how do we fix stablecoins? Do you think it should be like a dollar pegged, like pegged to like a government currency? Do you think there should be something else? I guess I don't know how much you guys have looked into it, or like any thoughts on stablecoin stuff, because like all of today I just been like ripping through DAIs and Frax, and I mean USDC's code as well. I mean, but the USDC code is literally just like an ERC20, and they have blacklisting capability. Like that's it. Which I'm sure we can all agree, isn't the future. But yeah, I'm curious if you had any thoughts.
I mean, I think that pegging it to a combination of a stable, or not stable, but like a government, a traditionally somewhat stable government issued currency like euro or US dollar, along with inflation adjusted, would make a lot of sense to me, maybe. So like, let's say that today a dollar is worth $1, and a year from now it's worth $1.20, then that value kind of like goes up. And I think I've seen someone do something like that. So like, if you bought $100 of USDC and $100 of this other token, then a year from now your other token will be worth 120, and then the other one will be still worth 100. That makes a lot of sense. I also think it makes even more sense to create a basket of goods that are not really like pegged to any country's government issued currency. So maybe that could be wheat and some type of like, like fossil fuel. I don't know, like something like that, where you kind of like put a basket of goods together and you kind of try to peg it to something like that. Therefore, you're not kind of like relying on a single government's stability to for that. So
Yeah, I'm like right there with you. And then like even to the point where I was like, why do we not like why is like our current currency like not even inflation proof? And I guess it's just like not possible. But yeah, it's like we have this inherent issue where like if you hold cash, if you hold dollars, like I mean, this year inflation was what, like 7%? Like you lost 7% of all your cash if you like had cash in your bank account, which is like wild to me. But yeah, like that's just like I was thinking the exact same thing. And one of the ones that it looks like that's what they're doing is this FPI, where the token is based off of like a consumer price index, which I thought was really cool. And like the value they use, like it's collateralized, so that's how they make sure it stays off of on its peg based off inflation. But yeah, I'm right there with you. And then to me that's like that would be how crazy cool to be, right? How crazy cool to be if you had like you know um $10 in the 1930s, and that $10 could buy you just as much stuff today as it could in the 1930s. To me that's like crazy powerful, like to the point where I'm like, why don't we already have that? Like, why do we as a society not have like a, which I'm just like, whoa, that's crazy to me that we don't have that.
Have you messed around with Rye at all?
I was,
And also just like to lean back, like DAI has done a damn good job, right? Like we've gone through two big
I'm a big
crashes,
fan of DAI.
Yeah.
and DAI has stayed stable, and that's amazing to me. And really, if we really look at it, I think DAI set off DeFi summer too. The fact that you could lock up ETH as collateral and get DAI to play around with meant you had a lot of people playing around with DAI, and that kind of kicked off a whole lot of other things that happened 6 months later or something like that. So first of all, DAI is badass, and it's great to have a stable coin where if you have $10 today, you have $10 tomorrow. If I say it's one DAI, it makes sense to you right away. But then also there's Rye, which is also probably going to stay the same, like stay pegged, I guess, but it's not pegged at exactly $1. It's a couple more dollars. My assumption is the thing that you're asking for is something that stays stable, that doesn't get hit with inflation. And I think that this would be one of those, but I'm not exactly sure. Like I'm like super like high level on this stuff. Like basically stable coins stay stable because there's over collateralized loans and you control supply and demand to keep the price right. And that's basically my knowledge of stable coins.
Well, kind of like code thing here. So one of my favorite things actually about Rye, if you've taken a look at where's the they have like a table where they say like all the names of like the variables. And actually let me just show you this. So
no, is it like the Maker? So Maker has like just 3-letter
oh my
words
gosh
for all of their variables, like
God.
VAT and Guy and WAD.
For all the devs here, I wanna just do a quick show, because I was blown away. I was like, how does anyone know how to do anything? So that's their architecture.
Yeah, that's an infamous diagram, I think, right?
Yeah, that's the infamous crazy diagram. But they have like a page in here, I forget where it is, where it's just like, it's like, all right, this is the cat.sol, dog.sol, abc.sol. And I was just like, what the but so Rye took that, and they had a page here somewhere, names or something, where they like basically have all the same things, but they're like, all right, but we renamed everything so it makes a little bit more sense. And that's probably one of my favorite things that Rye did, was they like renamed DAI. But yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, DAI. And the other thing about DAI too is I think one of the main reasons why I did kick off DeFi Summer too is if you want an asset to leverage up with, right? You wouldn't want to leverage up with an inflation asset. And sorry if we're getting too in the DeFi weeds for people here. Because when you have to go pay that token back, the inflation has kind of kicked up the price, versus if you use something like the dollar, you're basically getting away with highway robbery. Like it just makes more sense to leverage up with like a dollar a dollar thing, but it does make more sense to hold your money in like an inflation coin, which is really cool. But yeah, if anyone gets a chance, look into these stable coins. It's crazy cool. And yeah, like having these be solid, having like us have like really good stable coins, I think is like, yeah, it's like Austin Griffith's point. That's what kicked off DeFi summer. That's what kicks off a lot of like making all this work. Like imagine if, you know, there was like a payment platform that had this token that tracked the price of a government asset and inflation. Like you could just hold that forever. And you'd be good. Like your value would never go away, which to me would be crazy powerful. And then we could use it to transact with like e-commerce and stuff. That would be wild, absolutely wild.
One thing. I mean, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Matter. So I was just going to say a good transition. Another thing, a good area to be working in terms of we have this blockchain, we have these new tools. What are other things they could be used for? Just open source software funding. Like I want to have a package JSON that has every Ethereum address for every different package that I'm using. And when I make 40K from a Gitcoin grant, I want to drop, 10K to all of my dependencies. And I want to see something like that happen all the time, right? I want to see people funding, like, that the notorious, there's so many good XKCDs, but the XKCD where it's like some developer from Nebraska is like holding up that, like is supporting this one open source piece of software that like everybody uses. If that's the case, like money should be flowing into that package JSON and flowing to that developer. And that one developer should just be getting waves of money and hiring and scaling up and finding people to like make that piece of software more robust. And so that's another place I think we can play with.
Have you seen T? So T like is literally the founder. Yeah, TEA.
Oh, okay.
Was created by let me go ahead and take a link to it. It was created by the founder of Homebrew. So Homebrew is very I would say like not only widely used, but it's crucial to almost every large organization is using it and probably very heavily. So the creator of Homebrew, his name is I believe like Max Howell or something like that. But yeah, so he created Homebrew, became wildly successful. Everyone uses it. He famously went and interviewed with Google, and they actually turned him down for the job, even though the number of engineers at Google using his software, like to actually make things work, was like higher than 50%. He like tweeted out, something that ended up being like a really famous tweet. Like, I created Homebrew and like I got interviewed at Google. And even though like X number of percentage of their engineers are using my software, they said I wasn't capable of like working there. But even more to me, like importantly, is that he had created software that was powering billions and possibly trillions of dollars worth of software, and he was unable to even pay like his bills. So he ended up leaving the project and going to get his own job, just doing whatever as a software engineer. So he created something called T, and T is, let me get a link to that. T is basically a
decentralized protocol for remunerating the open source ecosystem. I see the white paper, but I don't know what that means.
Well, yeah, let me find a link to their website. Okay, t.xyz, and I'll paste the link to it here. So
paying people for their services. It's such a white paper. You have to use words like remunerating.
So yeah, I think the idea though is exactly what you're talking about, where if you create a package and someone uses it, you have a way to get paid for every time someone downloads it, installs it, or uses it, or something like that. I haven't actually spoken to him about it. I know he came and gave a presentation at Developer DAO once, but like, yeah, but at least the idea is definitely in line with what you're talking about.
Have you guys seen what happened to Faker.js?
Is that the one where the guy like deleted it or something?
Yeah, so there was like a super popular there's like a Stack Overflow question on it. Super popular, and then I was looking up like this dev.to. It's like a super popular package for like basically like mocking data, and a ton of Fortune 500 companies were using it and stuff. And so he posts onto the repo. He's like, hey, like, I don't have any, nobody's paying me for this, but everyone's using it. I need some help. I need money to live and stuff. And everyone just completely ignored him. So he ended up.
Nerds are so bad at that. I am too. Like this is a problem.
Yeah.
The problem is not that like the guy hasn't built anything good. He's asking for money and failing to get the money. Like we just need a better, more accountable system to get those folks paid. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, and it's hard too, right? Because it's like, you start something for fun, and then all of a sudden, like all these randos start like depending on it for like them to work, and then you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do this, and then a few years down the road, everyone and their brother is using it, and you gotta like, oh, okay, well, I was doing this for fun, and like now it's kind of a job, but nobody's paying me, so like I don't want to do it anymore. And so that's what basically happened with this guy. He's like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. He basically pulled the repo. He posted this kind of like what you see here, like just this end game commit, pretty much deleted everything. And yeah, like people like lost their minds because there were packages depending on it, and then people kind of blindly did like the npm update, and they pulled this repo that did absolutely nothing. But yeah, it's like a real situation where like somebody not getting paid caused him to go like, F this, I'm out. Yeah, it's just really unfortunate.
Yeah, and I still think that DAOs are going to continue to innovate and like revolutionize like how I would say, not only build communities, but also how we coordinate. And I think that we still have a long way to go around figuring out how to actually make that happen efficiently, because I think that there's this tug of war between centralization and decentralization within DAOs, where you have the ability to kind of like allow people to kind of make decisions as a cooperative, but it often slows people. It always slows you down if you need everyone's approval to do anything. So like trying to figure out tooling and processes to kind of make that work. But I'm really excited about DAOs still, for sure.
Definitely. So we have so we scheduled this for like an hour. We're pretty much coming up on that right now. If you guys got to drop, feel free. But we said we were going to do some Q&A at the beginning, and then we just kind of popped off. You guys want to switch to some Q&A to close it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Yeah, so anybody who's watching on YouTube, Twitter, well, not Twitter because we can't see the comments, but YouTube or Twitch, feel free. You guys can see the comments, right? Austin, now you guys can see the comments.
I can see the chat, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, feel free to leave a question. I'm scrolling up now. And yeah, if you guys see any that are interesting, we'll put it on the screen. I'm scrolling down looking for questions here. Yeah, reentrancy. I was talking about reentrancy when I was talking about hacks. It's just reentrancy, Oracle manipulation. There's a couple other ones that just like
happen
like again.
Yep. I noticed someone saying that when we were talking about paid courses, sometimes paying for the course keeps you accountable. Definitely. And I've been thinking about, what if I make them stake 1 ETH to come into and work in my my course for a couple of weeks, and then as they finish each week, I actually like send them back some of their money, so like they don't even know about it. Like I'm not going to charge them, but I'm going to hold them accountable with their own money.
That makes sense.
A mechanism like that. That'd take me 5 minutes to write into a smart contract.
And I would like to clarify. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. All you.
No, I was going to say, like, I was criticizing that course in particular earlier because I felt like it was from everything that I could tell, it was someone charging $1,200 for some kind of like more like grifty type of stuff. Like, oh, like this is how you become successful in Web3. It had nothing to do with software development. Like I actually do like appreciate the fact that we have a lot of free content, but I also appreciate the fact that if someone spends a year of their time building something, that they have the right to charge for it, and they should. So like I wasn't really criticizing like that other people might go out there and like charge for their courses. In fact, I like fully support that. And I would never like say that something is worse because you have to pay for it. That often means that the quality is even better. But I think like the approach to marketing it and like selling it does matter a lot. And I think that if you're a genuinely like good person trying to kind of like, help people, and you can still charge for it and kind of do so in a way that is like ethical and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. So all right, so we have some questions here. Any plans to create content on smart contract audits? I know I am. That's on my soonish to-do list. I don't know about
I don't. I do a lot of light content. I say go to Solidity by example and go look at the attacks and then pull up scaffold ETH and reproduce them. Like we got on and reproduced reentrancy and reproduce overflow and some of those obvious ones. But I think for me, once a developer gets through speedrun Ethereum and they're like, oh, okay, now I want to learn how to be an auditor. This shit's cool. Like, what are flash loans? Let's go. Then I send them over to Ethernaut DAO or somewhere else. Like, have you guys seen the Ethernaut challenges? I feel like those are good for getting started with auditing.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So, and then after that,
yeah,
like,
really good.
what we need, like auditing is obviously like a huge thing. What we need is like a social network for auditors or learning auditors where they can come in and kind of apprentice and they can take on and try to audit certain contracts that maybe have even been audited already, but without being able to see that audit. And I think a lot of audit shops will even have their junior folks do an audit without telling them, and then they do the real audit and then they see how well their junior folks did. Like, we just need a social network that does that. Like every time someone's auditing a contract, it's out there to those folks and everyone's kind of pitching in and trying and learning, and then one random person finds this thing and it's like, oh shit, and it changes like the whole industry. So we just need more of that. Yeah.
There's a couple good like bug bounty DAOs out there which are pretty cool.
Immunify, maybe?
Immunify, yep, Immunify.
Yeah.
And then I thought there was like an audit DAO being spun up, but that's also like, that's such a hard thing to coordinate because audits are such a laborious intensive. You can't just be like, hey, like who wants to do this audit? Like, haha. It's like you're pouring over code. Like that's all you're doing for the week. But yeah, 100% agree. Can you address the TOP situation when having a DEX and not using Chainlink price feeds? Not exactly sure what you're asking there. Is Vyper worth it, or is it just as the same as Solidity? I like Vyper a lot. If you want to do Vyper, you can do Vyper. If you want to do Solidity, do Solidity. I'm in the mindset just like do whatever you want to do. Like they're both good. I know there's kind of like holy wars on like Solidity's better, Vyper's better. I code in both. I think they're both good.
Use the tool that gets the job done. Like use the tool that builds the thing.
Yeah, there are some like differences in gas optimization, but in the newer versions of Solidity, they're like tightening that up a lot. Actually, I saw Nader actually put a post of like Seaport. If anyone saw like the Seaport code, Seaport was this kind of reimagining of OpenSea, and they wrote everything in like inline, this like ugly, this horrible.
It was all assembly. It wasn't all assembly, but a lot of it was assembly, and it was like very, very unapproachable by the average newbie developer, or even like me as like someone that's
this.
So yeah,
this brings up a good topic. Some people will say that there really only needs to be like 20 good Solidity developers, and it should just be them that are writing the smart contracts. And in this case, like whoever writes the version 2 of OpenSea, something that has a shitload of product market fit and money, should honestly be like god tier level Solidity developer. Like they should be writing assembly, like the dude who wrote Roller Coaster Tycoon, like that MF, that guy should be writing the second level of OpenSea, right? And so yes, that's true. There are certain levels of smart contract development when it is like god tier level, and only god tier level people are going to F around there. But the really the superpower of Ethereum is anyone that knows how to write a little bit of code can write a smart contract. And I can write a smart contract and deploy it just for my little community, right? You don't have to be building these giant complex systems. So it's like this weird, like, yes, there are certain parts of Solidity that maybe only god tier level people are going to get to, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go learn Solidity and try to build some decentralized apps. And so like make sure that doesn't like scare you away. Like, yes, Seaport is going to be built in assembly, but no, if you wanted to build a small little signature based NFT marketplace that pays royalties in a brand new way, you can go do that today without being god tier. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
I think that makes a lot of sense, but I still strongly believe that we should make the tools just as approachable as possible, and that's where like I think having the assembly is really, really good, but having like that be like, if you want to be like a god tier, like having that be a requirement, I think like kind of really sucks. But I know the Solidity team. They're doing a lot of really good things. Like if anyone here is watching, they're turning on like this. It's called like the IR flag, the intermediate representation flag for like their compiling. Just makes their compiling like way better. Stuff's getting really tight. But yeah, as of right now, kind of answer your question. Whatever you want to do, yes, have fun. As Austin said, just keep building. Yeah, build it.
Someone asked about the ether not there, and I posted the link into private chat. If you would,
yeah. Let me post it on.
Sending that all the way over. Yeah. Cairo too. Cairo's neat, right? Like it sucks that you have to learn a whole new language to build something, but if you need to do, I think it's computational heavy stuff, then Cairo's really good. If you need to have something that's computationally heavy that settles to a blockchain, I think Starknet, whatever it is. Yeah. I'm not like great at these technologies, but it might be worth going to learn that language to build that thing.
All right, so we're 6 minutes over. You guys want to go like rapid fire for like 3 minutes and then close it out?
Sure.
All right. What the fuck is Web 5?
It's more garbage. It's more noise.
I think it's someone that's trying to kind of take like the ideas of Web3 and capitalize upon them in a centralized way.
It's like the knucklehead we were talking about earlier that puts Web3 in their portfolio, but this knucklehead has a big portfolio, and when he puts it on there, it really means something. But it's still just almost all bullshit and copying stuff that we're all like we've been doing for the last 2 years. So it's just more garbage. It's going to cause us more problems. And I think maybe that's the point. Like, do you think Jack's like, you know what? Like, I'm good. I just want to grief some people now. Like, I'm going to create like this whole thing just to grief these Web3 dorks. Like, and it's going to.
That's too, Jack Dorsey on blast here. The Web3 development tools are growing every day. Do you recommend learn about all tools or specialize in one of them?
I personally think that like you should probably specialize in a smaller subset, because that way you don't get burnt out and you're able to also become like really good and really efficient at one thing. So let's say right now, if you want to write Solidity, like my two favorite options, and obviously this isn't like, I'm not saying anything other than these are not good, but I'm a big fan of Foundry, and I'm starting to become more and more of a fan of Foundry because I'm liking to write my tests in Solidity. And then I'm also a fan of Hardhat. I think if you specialize in either one of those, you'll do really great. If you want to specialize in a front end framework, I wouldn't try to learn Svelte, Vue, React, Next, all of those things together. I would probably find one and get really good at it. And then if you have that one stack that you're really good at, you can pretty much build anything. And it doesn't matter if someone comes out with another tool that gets the same exact job done. As long as you're able to get the job done, then you're good to go.
I want to piggyback on that and say, Scaffold ETH has been a really great tool for folks to build. Like there's now like more than 2,000 forks of it. So like 2, I wanted to see, more than 2,000 forks of it. Yeah. But what I wanted to go there is Scaffold ETH is basically just the stack you need for a hackathon. If you need to build a hackathon app like in 1 hour, Scaffold ETH is basically both Hardhat and then a Create React app with all the components, and it kind of wires things together nicely for you. But if I were to draw the line and say, what is like the hot, the new cool stuff, I would say it would be Foundry, Next.js, Rainbow Kit, maybe even WAGMI because Rainbow Kit is using them. But it's basically the entire Scaffold ETH stack, but in a different way. Instead of Hardhat, you have Foundry. Instead of Create React app, you have Next.js.
It's still the EVM React
components. Stack. Yeah, exactly. So they're almost mutually exclusive between the stack I just explained and Scaffold ETH, but it's like that's I would love to see that Scaffold ETH come out too, right? Because it would help people build a ton of new things, and we're working on it. We're working on all sorts of different flavors of it. So just to piggyback on that like there's lots of different tools. If your goal is to learn a little bit about all of them, maybe you're like a DevRel person that's trying to get a good ecosystem view so you can talk about it. But if your job is to get something done and to build something, you should look around a little bit and then kind of zoom in. I think it's kind of like when you find your life partner, kind of, right? You need to date a little bit, but if you date forever versus if you marry the very first person you meet, right? So date a little bit, find the tool that works for you, and then put a ring on it.
Love that.
All right, dating tips with Austin Griffith. That's date a little bit. Go out and date a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and then then we'll close it up. I saw a really good one that's good for the last one. Do you think there are some stuff that is better off centralized other than being decentralized?
Of course, yes. There are very few things that actually need to be decentralized, and sometimes you only need decentralized when you need it. So, Web 3 will be built on Web 2, and let's make sure we say that very loudly. Like, 90% of the web is not going to be on Web 3. That would be incredibly expensive. Like, you don't need that level of decentralization. There are very few things that actually need to be decentralized.
Like dating around a little bit. That should probably be centralized. So, cool. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you both so much for being here. I know we chatted about just like a bunch of random stuff. We literally got on the call and we were like, all right, what are we going to talk about? And we were like, whatever. And just let it rip. So, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to Austin and Nader for joining and jumping on the call here. And hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you all again. And let's keep building.
Go speedrun Ethereum. That's what I'm always chilling. Go speedrun Ethereum. Go do it. Just go build something. Go build like one thing. Like, take 2 hours and start and get all the way to the end and ship that thing and show it off on Twitter. Go do it now. Go do it.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.